مستون جوانکه در مستی خواب در گیلکه خودو دوه خوکالک سنگلاس رباب در گیلکه خودو دوه خوکالک سنگلاس رباب در گیلکه خودو دوه پیوام رباب در گیلک خود دوار ایوان ویته ایوان کباب
Snow-capped mountains, glaciers, alpine highlands and deep valleys dominate Badakhshan, an autonomous region of Tajikistan in the heart of Central Asia. The mountains form the westernmost extension of the Himalayas, with peaks higher than 7,000 meters. It is often called the roof of the world. Although of remarkable beauty, nature is harsh, and in the highlands only small groups of nomads, the Turkish Kyrgyz, can survive. Permanent habitation is confined to the river valleys. There live the Pamiri, a diverse unity speaking a variety of Iranian languages and having customs that vary from valley to valley. Badakhshan is an Islamic country. The majority of the population belongs to the Ismaili branch of the Shia, but followers of the Sunni denomination are also represented. For centuries, Badakhshan was protected by mountains, but 100 years ago the Russian and British imperial governments managed to divide the country. The southern half of the country became a part of Afghanistan, while the north, the area of the Pamir Mountains, became Russian. During the Soviet supremacy, Badakhshan was a prohibited area and closed to the outside world. Perestroika and the independence of Tajikistan brought freedom of expression and a new openness, but the political confusion and the economic chaos that followed the demise of the Soviet Union has hit the population hard. The Silk Road, the ancient trade route between China, India and the West, passed through Badakhshan. On horseback, many a trader or adventurer braved the difficulties and hardship of the road in search of wisdom, wealth, and fame. Their stories all mention the fabled rubies and lapis lazuli of Badakhshan, but the awe-inspiring nature of the Pamir Mountains form the heart of their tales. The experiences reflected in these images of a Russian expedition from 1927 fit well the words of Hussein, a Chinese Buddhist pilgrim of the 4th century AD. On these mountains there is snow in winter and summer alike. There are also venomous dragons which, if provoked, spit forth poisonous winds, rain, snow, sand, and stones. Of those who encounter these dangers, not 1 in 10,000 escapes. The inhabitants of the country who serve the travelers as guides, porters, and providers of food and fodder are hardly mentioned in the travel logs and early geographical compilations of people like Marco Polo. So we know little of the ancient history of Badakhshan. We do know that the surrounding powers of the time did try to control the region, at least the strategic points along the Silk Road. But the mountainous nature of the area kept them from colonizing it. This gave the Badakhshanis the possibility to keep their own languages and traditions and to accept outside influences on their own terms. It also made the country a place of refuge for whoever had to leave the lowlands.
شعر این سرچشمه اساسی معنویات انسان است و چون مردم به اسلام گرویدند 1000 سال پیش از این یا زیادتر از آن در اسلام شعر جاری شد.
In Badakhshan, poetry is mainly sung poetry, accompanied by the rubab, a string instrument. The major genre is the madah, long religious poems which are performed on winter evenings or grave occasions, as for example, when somebody dies.
In these groups, which are still sticking to their own expression, which has been their expression even before they converted to Islam, because we have to know that they keep traditions which are not necessarily Islamic. They articulate Islamic beliefs to ancient culture, which is still alive in these groups. And poetry plays a major role in all oral cultures. It is the way to keep the memory of the group, to express the collective memory of the group.
The most renowned poet in Badakhshan is Nazir Khusro. The people consider him to be the one who brought them their religion and a common poetic language, classical Persian. Although Nazir Khusro died almost 1,000 years ago, people still can recite his poems by heart.
مهمترین از آن است که در ایجادات ناصر خسرو این خودشناسی ملی پیش از همه زیادتر صدا می‌دهد چون شاهنامه. ولی چون اون اسماعیلی بود و معروف شده و این مردم اسماعیلی هستند اون را بسیار مقدس می‌دانند.
When Nasir Khusrau, after 5 years in Cairo and after several pilgrimages to the holy city of Mecca, returned to Iran, he was such an ardent defender of the Ismaili aspects of faith that the strictly Sunni orthodoxy of Iran began to persecute him, and finally he had to take refuge in Badakhshan, in the high mountains, where there was no one with whom he could quarrel. Or rather, he had his quarrels all through his poetry. He tells how he despises people who cling only to the outward shell of faith, of people who believe in all the reality, the stark realities of paradise, and do not understand that the thing that matters is the interior understanding, the batin, the inner side of faith.
Islam came to Badakhshan between the 10th and 15th century. Before, the people were fire worshippers and followers of Zoroaster. The memory of these times is still alive in Badakhshan, and many of the pre-Islamic traditions and beliefs have found a new expression within the framework of Islam. Like this mazor, decorated with the horns of the Marco Polo sheep, the national symbol of Badakhshan. The mazor is dedicated to Shah Qambar Aftab, whose family name, Aftab, refers to the sun. A mazor is a place of reverence, a wayside shrine located just outside the village and often referred to as a tomb of a pious man. Similar structures can be found all over the mountain areas of Central Asia, in the Islamic as well as in the non-Islamic areas, relics of an ancient common heritage.
و غیر از این سنگا بسیار سابقه تاریخ طولانی دارن، یعنی اون زمانی که هنوز مذهب آریانی در این کشور رواج داشت و در روی این سنگا، در روی این مزار، در روزهای عید مذهبی آتش پرستی شمع روشن میکردن و بعداً چون در دوره اسلام این چیز منع شده بود، لیکن این سنگا به همون شکل سابق خود مقدس امروز هم دانسته میشد و هر کس که اینجا میاد روی این سنگا به این شکل زیارت میکنه.
Along the old Silk Road in the Wakhan Valley, one can see the ruins of many fortifications. In the village of Namatkut, on the ridge just opposite the local Mazor, there are the remnants of a particularly large fort. The local people tell that a long time ago it was an important fort of the fire worshippers. When the Arabs had conquered many countries and wanted to bring the Islam to Badakhshan, they attacked it many times but could not take it. Finally, one of them devised a ruse. A small group dressed up as wandering musicians and approached the fort while singing and dancing. When the leader of the fire worshippers saw them, he decided to let them in, for everyone who did sing and dance was welcome and could not mean any harm. While in the fort, disguised Arabs eagerly examined the defenses and communicated the weaknesses to their army, which was waiting nearby. In such a way, they could take Fort Kakaha, and so Islam came to this region. The majority of the Badakhshani belong to the Ismaili branch of the Shia, one of the many different groups that make up the Islam world. The Ismaili believe in the guidance of a living Imam, presently Aga Khan IV, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad through his son-in-law Ali and his daughter Fatima. They value knowledge, the inner experience of religion, self-reliance, and service to the community. They also believe in adapting their faith to the inevitabilities of the times. In remote Badakhshan, the Ismailis have preserved their own religious expressions. They call themselves the believers of the Panchtan, the five pures, Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein. The living room of every house is constructed around 5 pillars, which represent the 5 pures.
و وقتی که بعد از قرن 15 مبلغین شیعی به این کشور آمدند و مذهب شیعه را در اینجا تبلیغ کردند، اونا توانستند که این 5 فرشته جاودان تغییر نام کردند و با 5 تن پاک نام اونا را تغییر کردند. لیکن در نزد پامیرها غیر از خدای متعال که اون شناخته و دیده و دانسته نمیشد، غیر از اون 5 فرشته جاودان که خدا در نوبت اول خلق کرده و اون 5 فرشته جاودان در زمین تمام زندگی انسان از آغاز پیدایش در جنین تا دم مرگش اونا تحت کنترل دارند و زندگی انسان در زیر اثر اونا میگذرد. هم زندگی انسان و هم زندگی تمام موجودات دیگر که در عالم است. از این جهت این از نگاه مذهبی بسیار مهم بود، چرا که دروغ گفتن در مذهب آریانی بدترین گناه حسابیده میشد و هر کس که دروغ گفتن یاد میگرفت معلوم است که تمام شر دیگر که در دنیا موجود است او میتواند که به اون دست بزند. و چون اصول اساسی دینی این بود که اصلا انسان باید دروغ نگوید، مجبور بودن که با فرشتگان اون زندگیش یک جا پیش ببرد. از این جهت اون 5 فرشته در هر یک خانه پامیری موجود است.
This excellent performance of a rapo dance is a part of a marriage celebration. The whole village has gathered. Soon there will be more music and dancing. Songs will be sung about flowers and the pain of leaving. The Khalifa is there to solemnize the wedding. Later the groom's hair will be cut, the bride clothed and decorated. She will wear the red color of happiness and the blue lapis lazuli necklace. When the groom comes as a pasha, as a king, he and his friends will be welcomed with milk and flour. Signs of prosperity, food to be respected like bread, only broken by hand, never cut with a knife. A wedding starts with the bread on which gifts for the bride are collected, and then this bread will be thrown to the birds, the younger brothers of mankind.
آقای مادافا توی تو خواهد بلند دیشی ها ایمه حاجی
خداوندا عجب دلارایی هم طربی هم تمولایی با سفر رفتن چه میفرمایی؟ با سفر رفتنت مبارک باشد صحت روی و سلامت بازایی صورتت گردد مجسم فت گویم ماشکار لا فتای لا حلی لا سیف لا ذوالفقار هر بلا و هر خطا از پیش آید رفع کن پروردگار به حق 5 تن پاک محمد است علی فاطمه حسن حسین آمین الله اکبر.
Not all traditions are so alive anymore. The petty kings and their nobles have been swept away by the Soviets. There are no more shamans, and no one knows anymore how to perform the eagle dance. What could not be practiced covertly in the house sank into oblivion because of schooling and the ban on public performances deemed backward or dangerous. Mask plays of 70 years ago, like this story of the old man and his desire for a beautiful young bride, have been taken up again. On a festive day in Sujan, we stumbled on a rendering of the same story. There is a clear interest in cultural revival. The Persian script of old is replacing the Cyrillic, and the music and dance are studied again. Following this narrow valley, we are on our way to the village of Shanbadeh. It is a long and rocky ride over a road which is only open in the short summer time. Shanbadeh is remote like all the other villages in the upper parts of the valley. The inhabitants are farmers, growing wheat, potatoes, cabbages, and some green vegetables. They have a few cows, some sheep, and goats. In Shanbere lives Ruzakhon Safaros with his wife, children and grandchildren. He has spent all his life in this village, herding sheep and working in the fields of the Sofros. Hard work with little gain, barely enough to survive, but it does provide the family's basic food, bread and surchoy, a mixture of tea, milk and salted butter. When the work is finished, the family spends their time together in the house doing the necessary chores, talking and playing music. This time, when Reza Khan and his male relatives started to sing, his elderly neighbor came rushing in to give the performance more spirit.
Ida, أخذ ذسك كم خطاجة مشدودة. نعقوني.
Potsik tot nozien, potsik lailaj, konan dergil tot nozien lailaj. خدتم تفنات توتم درگیل هپوتسک لای 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 خنم قبول تردم نیاز لای
Peki çöz ya.
چه کن بیار بخور. چون چه کردی بدخشان؟
Shanbada can boast of electricity and a school, both from the Soviet times. Badakhshan has a high literacy rate, 95% for both men and women, a level rare in this part of the world. But it is a literacy in the Cyrillic script. Recently, however, the old Persian script has been reintroduced, and in the schools, Tajik has become the first language instead of Russian.
ترتیبات داخلی و کارها را دست زدن. من خطاگی دیگر همی که در شرایط جمهوری ما بسیار سازمان ها تشکیل شد.
بیشتر سال چوپانی کردیم. خب انا 30-40 سال دیگه دهقانی کردیم. باغبانی کردیم. ما در نیمه عمرمان از همون سال که با نان خوردم سر کردیم، از پدر مادر کلان شدیم و از تربیه پدر مادر برآمدیم، دای ما با تربیه مهنت خود. این مهنت خود بسی نمی کرد. حکومت با ما می آورد. حکومت می آورد و ما را می خوراند تا به زمان. این از این زمان دیگر حکومت که نیست، نونم نیست. تغییر تمام تغییر کرد. به مبتی را کرد. خب در جون تو مردم که پوشاک نمی رسد، خوراک نمی رسد، همه همینو تغییر شدن. همین با ما بسی نمی کند. ما همه خیلی مقصدی داریم که دولت های مثل روسیه، قرقیزستان، یا ازبکستان،
یا کدامش که نباشد اگر به یاردم ایوران ما زندگی کردن نمیتونیم. ممکنی هم میشود که ما گلندی هم یاردم ممکند اگر شود با مقصد ما. دیگر ولی از این طرف یا نصیب اون همه دولتی جمع میشیم، کلیکتیو کار میکنیم، یک جا میمونیم، یک سردار با ما همه را باز در وقتی که گشنه میمونیم با ما تقسیم میکند، میدید، اما میخریم، اما یکی میخریم. هر که ایام دیگری پنهان نخرد یک سره. خب جمعیت جمع دل بیغم باشیم، همه ما مستحکم باشیم، به خود بخوریم. دیگه اون مقصدی نیست. مقصد ما همه که مقصد همه دولت ها همه آسایش باشیم که ما در سایه اونا امان بیاویم. این همه قدر مقصد دیگه نیست.
In the Soviet times, agriculture was collectivized as it was in the rest of the Union. People worked for a savkhos, which owned the land, planned the labor, took care of fertilizers and seeds, and sold the produce. Everything was decided by the higher echelons in the capital cities. There was little incentive to improve productivity. In fact, in the last 40 years, the productivity declined until 80 to 85% of the food was imported from outside the region. Since independence, these imports, as well as the deliveries of fuel and agricultural inputs, have stopped. The people are forced to reintroduce old and rather simple production methods. In Yamga, a small village in the Wakhan Valley, the villagers have started to rebuild the old mills. In 1 year's time, they have managed to put 5 mills in operation, the same number as there were 100 years ago. And, like then, the villagers can produce their own stock of flour, replacing the dwindling supply from outside.
یک تن یا 2 تن ذخیره زمستان هم میشکیدن تا با بهار دیگر این آردمون تامین شود. تابستان شد باز آب زیاد میشد. از این قضیه استفاده بردن و آیسته آیسته بهار دیگه مگزین قضیه که خلق شد، زندگی خلق از اینا استفاده کم بردن. علاقه ای شد که اینا از استفاده براین، یعنی کار نمیکردن.
In Yamga, the people have also built a museum for Mubarakadam Wahani, a local scholar at the turn of the century. He is famous for his travels to faraway countries, his good deeds, the sundials and mills he built, and especially the books and poems he wrote. Although he's from several generations ago, and not everything is remembered exactly, he has become a hero who fits very much with the modern times. Mubarak Adam's self-reliance, knowledge and piety are seen as an example which could inspire the answers for the problems of today.
در بین مردم او همچون شخصی گویم بزرگ به مانند گویم ناصر خسرو، سنایی، شمس تبریزی و حساب می رود. آن چیزهایی که در بالا قید کردیم از وی ماندگان برای مردم عادی گویم یک چیزی بزرگوار است. آدمان به وی سجده میکنند، چطوری که به مزاران سجده میکنند، زیارت میکنند آنها را. خب یعنی وی برای مردم وخان یک شخص مقدس است. دیگری که اون چیزی که شما میبینید این همه با پول خلق، یعنی با محبت آنها بود که پول جمع کردن و یاری رساندن و با امراه هم نبیراش و والدین این آثارخانه را ساختیم.
In the Soviet times, especially in the 1930s, religious expression were forbidden. Many scholars and believers had to leave the country and went to Afghanistan. The communists made the innocent guilty and imprisoned them, and the people didn't dare to ask where they were taken to. When perestroika came, the freedom of religious expression was restored, and in Yamga the people immediately started to revive the memory of Mubarak Adam and started to build this museum. Mubarak Adam wrote beside poetry in the classical Persian forms many books explaining the Quran and the Ismaili doctrine in a language that the local people could understand. But many of his books have disappeared or were taken in the 1950s to institute in Leningrad and Dushanbe. The museum would like to retrieve these books or get copies, but it is rather difficult with their limited financial means.
کتاب آنها خیلی هم کم است. شماره آنها تا 10 دانه میرسد. خب این هم باشد کتابای از جهت مضمون و درجهشان خیلی هم نست. خب و کتابای هم گویم از جهت فلسفه، هم از جهت گویم تربیه معنوی اخلاقی خیلی بای است. که وقتی که وای قبر خود را میکند تا همون هفته‌ای که همون قبر خالی میمونه، در اون چیزی نیست. هر بعد غروب وقت یعنی هر شام در آنجا شمع فروزان میشود که این را از پدر و بابامون میشنیدیم که آنها می آمدن و مبارک میگفتن که در آن قبرستان که شما کافته اید اونجا شمع فروخته ایستاده است. سبب چیست؟ وای با چنین جواب میدونی این به نظر شما مینمود. بعد وای یک دندان خود را دادگی که برده همونجا پرتویند. بعد همین دیگر یکان کس هم فروزانی شم را آنجا نمیدید است. بعد همون هفته وای را برده همونجا دفن میکنند. همین مقصد وای درم یکی از همون رو باید خودشونی میگه آن حلقه که بر شکنج بوت زلفی ماست عقدانه دیگر سلامت از وای کس راست. ما پیزیمه قبر خود کافته ایم تا مرگ خبر شود کفن در بر ماست.
Bordering on China and Afghanistan, Tajikistan had primarily a strategic importance for the Soviet Union. Therefore, it invested heavily and subsidized most of the region's budget. The breakdown of the central subsidy system led to general shortages and a deep uncertainty about the future. A jostling for political and economic control over the new republic and aggravations caused by ethnic and regional tensions culminated in the 1992 Civil War.
رئیس شرکت تاجیکان جهان محترم امام علی شریف رحمانов داده می شود. Снова я приветствую представляется глава государства Таджикистан, председателя Верховному Совету.
Таджикистан, достатка и счастья для всех.
In Dushanbe, the capital city of Tajikistan, an unsteady peace has been restored and food is available once again for a price in the markets. But the road from Dushanbe to Badakhshan is still closed, and no government supplies have reached the region since 1992. What food and fuel reaches Badakhshan is brought in by private organizations through Osh in the neighboring Republic of Kyrgyzstan. From Osh, it is a long road, 750 kilometers over high mountains, and the convoys regularly have to wait a long time for petrol and spare parts. As a consequence, the shelves in the shops of Sharoog, the regional capital of Badakhshan, are still empty and food is rationed. During the Civil War, 60,000 refugees arrived in Badakhshan, swelling the population to about 250,000. It led to an immediate food crisis, and starvation was avoided only through humanitarian relief assistance from outside. The relief supplies are distributed by the Pamir development program, in which several worldwide organizations partake under the guidance of the Aga Khan Foundation. Apart from the relief aid, these organizations try to help the local people to initiate and develop small industries and agricultural activities. But as yet, these programs are only experimental. In the coming years, the region will remain dependent on supplies from outside. In 1995, 75% of the food will still have to be imported. But there is hope. The educational and health services are working again, and last year's yields were very promising. The people grab every chance they have to improve their circumstances, and one can only wish that the people of Badakhshan and Tajikistan will know the peace necessary to restructure their society while Father State fades away.
میدونم اما کمکی از آقا خان است آقا خان
Gerçeklerim sonyakinen
ناجی